All right. American Hammers TV. We had a special episode today. We've got Wayne from Dallas with us. Or is it Michael Antonio? I can't tell. I don't know. It could be one, it could be the other. It's hard to say.
I don't have the barnet for Michael Antonio.
Right, exactly. Can you do the dance, though? That's the question. Can you do the celebration?
I can definitely do that dance you did there because I was doing that dance back in my 20s and I'm 55 now.
There you go.
And I had many a girlfriend that dumped me because of doing that dance.
A little better off in the long run. And our special guest is Charlie from Hammers Chat. Now, we had Gio on from Hammers Chat, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. Tim, I think when you were on that with Tim, right?
Yeah.
And that has been our most watched video by some distance. I mean, a lot, by a whole lot. So, Charlie, the pressure's on, my friend.
Listen, if there's one person who's good at not living up to any sort of hype, it's me. I can do that anytime. That's the easiest thing I can do. So don't get your hopes up too high. Don't get your hopes up too high. But I thank you for having me.
Explains why you support West Ham. So, yeah, I wanted to jump right in because Charlie and I were just talking for a couple of minutes before we went live. So, Charlie, you are not from neither one of you guys is from East London. Nobody here from Ilford or Canning Town or any of the home territories. Charlie, tell us where you're from and how you got into West Ham.
Yeah, so I'm actually North London raised. Grew up and lived for the majority of my life in North London, closer to the Emirates or Highbury or White Hart Lane or whatever they want to call the new grounds than I ever was to Upton Park or anything else.
Whereabouts, mate? I used to live in North London.
So Islington mainly.
Okay.
I've moved around to a bunch of different places, but Holloway Road, Islington, Finsbury Park, Archway, Stamford Hill for a bit. I used
to go to the old Camden Palais back in the day back before your time, of course, and Dingwalls down by Camden Lock there.
Yeah, Dingwalls. Well, Dingwalls is still going.
Dingwalls is
still going, but it's all about the Electric Ballroom in Camden now. But yeah, so I've been closer to the North London clubs than anything else. But I suspect, in the same way that a lot of UK people start supporting West Ham, Dad's fault. Although he again wasn't from East London, he was actually from West London, and the only reason he supported West Ham was because he was incredibly lazy, and the tube station that he lived next to went all the way to Upton Park, and so it was the easiest one, or the least effort at least, to get to. Because again, he grew up closer to Brentford, that sort of way, and so for him to get, what was the least effort football club to get to, and it was West Ham, and he passed down both West Ham and laziness to me, as it were. So yeah, that's how I've ended up with this burden.
That's a beautiful story. Now, let me ask you: are you resentful of your father, or do you give him credit? You have the equivalent of what's it called here? What's the agency you call, Wayne, if somebody's abusing their kids? Social services.
Oh, was it DIFA over here in the States? But I mean, it'd be I don't know, I can't remember who it was when I was abusing kids back in England.
Right.
I was usually the kid being abused. I mean, because I was one of those kids that was, forced to go to watch West Ham, so I was definitely the kid that was being abused. So.
Right. Well, no, I was wondering, Charlie, how do you? So you could have legitimately been Arsenal or Tottenham, which honestly sounds pretty miserable because they seem like miserable people. But what are your thoughts on your dad pushing you to West Ham?
The thing is, right, is when you grow up in an area, and I find it quite, when I've watched these shows before and you have someone who supports West Ham who lives in America, and they often talk about going to the bar to watch the game and they're surrounded by Arsenal fans or Man United fans or whoever it happens to be. That's exactly the same for me. Wherever I grew up, wherever I moved, it was always, I was given North London, it was always, my friends were all Arsenal fans, Tottenham fans, or somehow Man United fans, because that's just the thing that happens, apparently.
They're all over the bloody place, aren't they? Let's face it. There are plastic bloody Man U fans all over the place. And I hate to say this because I hung out with a whole bunch of them yesterday and with the loveliest people I ever want to meet. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, they were good people. But they are all over the place.
And they are plastic too, let's be honest, because there's no reason.
Here in the States, they usually are.
Yeah, well, there's no reason to support Manchester United unless you're just a glory hunter, right? I mean, one of the reasons I personally support West Ham is because it is a London club, and I went to the Bowl years ago, and I'll get to the Olympic Stadium at some point. If I want to go see my club play, I want to go to one of the world's great cities. I don't want to go to Manchester. I want to go to London. And so I don't know. That's part of it for me. I can't imagine why you're Manchester United unless, you just started during the Ferguson era when they were winning trophies and so forth. And I don't know, Charlie, you look about the age. You've been around a bunch of kids who got into Manchester United in that era.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm 25, and so when I was a kid, when I was in primary school or elementary, I guess for you guys, it was the era of Ferguson and Wenger. And so,
yeah,
although Tottenham were pretty crap at the time, there weren't too many Tottenham fans around me. But although they were crap at the time, everyone else was supporting teams who were facing each other for the title, for FA Cups, and for everything.
And they're still crap. They're still crap. They're still crap. Just had to get that one in there. I'm sorry that I'll just burst in every once in a while. Still excited. They're still crap.
It's fine. Live it up. Live your truth. Live your truth. Live your truth. It's fine. Yeah, that's the point. Is like when you grow up around when you grow up around friends who have fans of teams that are actually successful, that means when you beat them, it's just that much better. Like I get so many questions in primary and secondary. Why do you support West Ham? And I'm like, because the second we beat you, it's more embarrassing for you than it is for you if you beat us. If you beat us, it's like, well done, you beat West Ham. Congrats. What are you gonna keep doing that? Yeah. Whereas if we beat Man United or we beat Arsenal or we beat Tottenham, it's like, oh my God, you lost to West Ham. How bad must you be? Mikel Antonio just rolled up and battered it in, and he has no technical ability whatsoever. What a time to be alive.
It's hilarious. It's like I run the Dallas Hammers group down here in Dallas, and somebody posted something about now North London is claret and blue, and then somebody harped in that Dallas is now claret and blue as well. Well, I guess the Dallas Spurs took offense to that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Said, yeah, and they're like, I can't remember exactly what they said because I was still slightly inebriated at the time and I was drunk tweeting. But they were back and forth, and they said to him, it's your trophy. Well, I'll be the first to admit it. It's been a pretty lackluster season, and we're towards the end of the season. I'm tired. It's been a long season. We get up early in the morning to watch the game over here, and I will be the first to admit it. No, hand on heart, and I don't have a problem admitting it, that the win at Tottenham was my trophy this year. It was bloody marvelous, and I don't care if I admit it. For me, I don't care if it's small-minded, but that'll get me going through the next two games. It will get me to the end of the season. It really will. But they got so aggravated by the fact that I stated that, number one, it's that we're the first to score, we're the first to win, we're the first to take away a clean sheet from them, that they deleted my tweets. They deleted my tweets. So me being the savvy Englishman that I am, I took a screenshot of my tweet after I tweeted it. So I posted it back out there.
You have to. That's why you need.
I know.
No, they have no spine. They can't handle. They have no sense of humor at all, and they have no. But listen. I mean, my thought was, and I've been thinking about this the last couple of days on and off, how they said, "Oh, it's your cup final." First of all, who cares if it is? But secondly, I want to tell them, no, we celebrate that like that every time West Ham win because it doesn't happen that often.
Every game's a cup final this year.
Yes, okay, it's more special in a London derby. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yes, it's more special when it's the first goal and the first away victory at their new stadium. There's nothing wrong with that either. But I mean, the thought that we're their cup final, it's a little presumptuous because we celebrate like that if we beat Fulham or Huddersfield or Southampton or anybody. Pretty close to it anyway. So they shouldn't get too worked up about themselves. I don't know. So obviously Tottenham and Arsenal, that's the North London derby. We all know that they, how they feel about each other. But Tottenham supporters always say they don't care about us, and they're very dismissive of us until, of course, they lose to us and they can't handle it. I mean, what's your experience been over there, Charlie? I don't know. Do you still live in and around North London?
Yeah, so I'm still in North London at the moment, and the way Tottenham fans treat us is very much similar to how Arsenal fans were treating them 10 years ago. When Arsenal were having rivalries with Manchester United for titles, right. Tottenham would get all hyped about facing them, and Arsenal would be like, okay, we've got bigger fish to fry. We don't really care. And it's a very similar situation. I think the fact that it's just the defense, mate. At the end of the day, it's just them being defensive. It's just them going, oh well, it's your cup final. Okay, we got to a cup final when we won. When did you do that? Like if they win the Champions League, it's going to be real annoying and peak on all of our lives. Like, don't get me wrong, because they're going to be like, we won the Champions League. When have you done that? But the truth is that they would celebrate just as much if they beat us as if we beat them. Like, if you look at any Tottenham channel, you look at any Tottenham fan site, you look at any Tottenham forum before the game, they were all saying, God, we really need to win this. We do not want to lose against West Ham. In the same way that we don't want to lose against Tottenham, they can go on about it as if it's their cup final because they think they're a bigger club than us. And you know what? They probably are. But
they are. Let's be honest, they are.
Who cares? I still wouldn't want to support them. I mean,
right.
They're a bigger club. They're in Champions League. They're a top 4 club. But I don't care. That's not why I support West Ham. I never got into West Ham for the glory, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if you get into it for the glory, you're just misguided and probably safe supporting West Ham because let's be real, we've got a lot of people who, two bob short of a whatever you want to call it. But the truth is that we roll up to games like that and we work hard and we try hard, and it means more to us because of people like Mark Noble and Declan Rice and when you see us succeed against a bigger club like that, it just means more. In the same way that if they go on to beat Ajax, they're probably going to go absolutely mental because Ajax are a bigger club than them. They're a more important club, and they're still new. They're still new to this whole being a big club situation. They've not been there for 10 years. They've only been there for 4, and it's only because of Pochettino, realistically.
Yeah.
So I'm letting them have their fun, mainly because every time they say anything, I could just go, yeah, but we also beat you at your ground. The first people to do it. Mikel Antonio's dumb celebration was the first thing you've ever seen score against you. So
the brilliant thing is, I don't think they're going to win Champions League. I don't think they're going to beat Ajax because I think Ajax have been brilliant, and I have a certain amount of faith that Ajax, if they can get through Real and if they can get through Juventus with Ronaldo, that they can also get through Tottenham, especially now that we've broken the seal at that stadium. But so let's say the worst case scenario happens and they do win Champions League. We still beat them at their stadium. It just doesn't. There's always going to be that trump card, like, yeah, but who has a perfect record at your stadium?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's having when you have. I do this thing. All my friends will back that I do it, and they all get very frustrated. Is I just don't let them talk if we're having an argument. I will just continue to talk at them the entire time. So they'll be like, "Oh, but we won champion." Yeah, but did we beat you at your stadium though? But did we beat you at your stadium? Because I heard Mikel Antonio scored at your stadium. I heard Mikel Antonio did a some celebration after beating you at your stadium, the one that you had not been beaten at before. Do you remember that? Do you remember that when we beat you at your stadium? And just keep going at them. Don't let them talk because they can say whatever they want. But the truth is, we still beat you at your stadium, and that's embarrassing for you.
Unless they're sharing, they can turn back freaking time. They can't do a thing about it.
Yeah.
They can't do a thing about it. And I love it. I love it.
I wanted to do 2 things very quickly that I forgot to do. First of all, I mentioned Tim's a coffee supplier, Strava Craft Coffee from Colorado. They've been sending us free coffee, which is very nice. I'm not a coffee drinker myself, but that's not because I don't love.
It's a beautiful coffee, Lee. It's a beautiful coffee. It's got fantastic taste. It's got CBD oil in it, and you know what makes it even better? A drop of Jameson.
I won't argue with that. Tim's got some coffee for me. The only coffee drinker in our house is my mother. My wife doesn't drink coffee. I don't drink coffee. My mom does. So I told my mom, I'm going to get you some coffee from Tim. She says, "Does it have that hemp in it?"
In a rope form.
It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. You don't have to smoke it. It's fine. It's not like that. So anyway, we'll see what she says. But yeah, Strava Craft Coffee, our friends there. Also, in the chat room today on Monday morning, my buddy Ken, the pilot who lives up in New Hampshire, who got me to the Boleyn years ago, is with us. And Wally World is with us, who's with us all the time. So we're happy to have them here at 10:15 on a Monday. Ken's got that pilot schedule, so you never know when he's working or not working. And I guess Wally's just hanging out, which is cool. That's fine. So anyway, happy to have those guys with us. So Charlie, tell us about Hammers Chat, what you do with Hammers Chat, kind of what the point of the whole thing is.
So it all got born out of a forum. I'll try not to repeat what Gio said, basically.
Well, if you do, don't worry about it because nobody understood him. That's why we got so many views on that episode.
Right.
I'm completely convinced that's why we've got so many views. Is people had to listen to it 3 times.
Right.
Yeah, people sending it to their friends, being like, "Oh, can you understand what this guy is saying?" And I know for a fact Gio will watch it back. So hello, Gio. Fun fact about that: when we first started, everyone kept calling him Northern Irish, which he found very infuriating. So if you ever want to get on his nerves, just mention that he's Northern Irish, not Scottish. Yeah. So it was all born out of a forum, and basically when they started up, himself and Gonzo wanted to start up a YouTube channel, and he put a tweet out just saying, we're going to start doing videos, does anyone want to get involved? I have done video stuff for a long time before that, about video games and wrestling, because I'm a nerd and that's just the stuff I do with my life.
You look like a nerd. I wouldn't have said that at all.
Well, listen, I'm a self-proclaimed nerd. I'm fine. You two are wearing West Ham shirts. I'm sitting here wearing a Japanese wrestling t-shirt, so I'm not fussed about what anyone thinks about me at any point in time.
I wear a West Ham shirt every day. That's why.
Fair. I wear Japanese wrestling t-shirts most days. But yeah, they put a tweet out saying, or Gio specifically said, we're going to start doing videos. Does anyone want to get involved? I wasn't following Hammers Chat. I wasn't part of the forum, but I just thought, screw it. I was looking to get into doing West Ham stuff because growing up in North London, like I say, I didn't really know any West Ham fans. My only West Ham fan was my dad. And my mum would say she's a West Ham fan, but she doesn't care. She just, supports the team in the fact that she knows if we lose, I'm in a bit of a mood. So she'd rather us win. So I was like, yeah, screw it. Let's go. Let's do it. I replied. I was the first person to reply. I think I was one of the only people to reply that early on. And then, yeah, we sat down. We did the first episode. You can go back and watch it on the channel. It's as awkward and difficult as you'd expect a first episode to be. But we just
episode? Did you ever see the first episode of what Tim and I did?
I don't think no, I've seen a lot of your episodes, but I definitely haven't seen the first one.
The first one is just the two of us. So
okay.
Yeah, go back and watch it. We've gotten better. Anyway,
that's the thing everyone does. If you go back and watch the first episode of any YouTube channel, of anything, you will see just the awkwardness. Go back and watch the first episode of any TV show. It's so much different to what it ends up being, with very few exceptions. But yeah, we started doing it. We started just doing these videos for ourselves, in the same way we do Google Hangouts, the same way we're doing here. And yeah, Gio is an incredibly hard working. I'm going to blow smoke up his butt for a second, but he's an incredibly hard working person, won't take no for an answer, will push stuff as hard as they need to be pushed to make it as popular as possible. Gonzo will make dumb jokes and then I'll annoy everyone by saying Mikel Antonio isn't very good. So it was sort of a blend of like things to come together. And yeah, we just started making videos, and we've been very fortunate to have done a lot of stupid things that we shouldn't have been allowed to do. I got to run around inside of the Bolin before it shut, basically completely unaided, went wherever I wanted to go.
How did you pull that off? Tell us that story.
Well, so again, Gio pulled it off. I was just along for the ride. So in the dynamics of Hammers Chat, Gio and Gonzo are the people who run it. Gio does like the legwork, Gonzo does some other stuff, and I do a lot of the editing and shooting. That's my like role within it. So Hammerette Time, which is our big show we do on the forum channel, where it's purely for female fans. I edit that. I edit all the Hammers Chat Insight videos. I do basically most of the editing and in any real life shooting. So when we do end of season stuff where we're all together in a pub, I film that. Down at the boats when we do reviews. If I'm there, I'm usually the one doing that. I'm not usually there, but yeah. So Gio, again, had managed to wrangle his way in. We actually did it twice. We actually managed to do it twice. The first time, someone who worked at the club, I don't know what I'm allowed and what I'm not allowed to say, so I won't. I'll leave out some details. But someone who works at the club basically invited Gio, and I went along with him before one of the games, the last season at the Bolin. We had a look around before the game. It's about say 2-3 hours before kickoff, and there's a lot of talk. You'll hear it now if you watch our channel or West Ham Fan TV or any of the people who are on the English side of the channel. About the security at the London Stadium being both annoying and lax.
Yes. It
wasn't that much better at the Bolin, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I, again, rock up with camera equipment, microphones, wires, and I had this massive rucksack on, right? And again, I've got a long beard, I've got a massive rucksack on with wires. Right. You can imagine that sometimes security guards get a bit anxious when I'm around, okay? And that's fine, and I understand that, but we walked up and basically just walked straight in. No one checked my bag, and we're walking in before kickoff, a Premier League fixture at a 35,000 seated ground at the time. Something could have gone very wrong, but it didn't, thankfully, because that's not my jam. That's not what I'm here to do. But
you're not an actual terrorist. You just look like a terrorist.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. I just happen to wear all black and have a long beard. But
yeah. No, I know. Yeah.
but so we go to the ground and we get shown around by the person who was working there at the time, and we got back. So we got to any area you think of. We'd sort of been to. We went to where the game is, where the boards are run from, where like the DJ sets are done. Where it was just we went everywhere. We went into change rooms. We went here. We went there. Quite at different times. But I will never forget. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done with Hammers Chat. Is he then took us down. So we had press passes for that game. So we went before to with this guy, and then he took us down to the press room where we had to go.
Which game was it?
It was. So I had press passes twice at Upton Park. One was the last Watford game, and the one that I'm talking about was against someone I can't remember.
That's okay. It doesn't matter.
It might be. Thinking off the top of my head, it actually might have been the Stoke game, because that was when we recorded a review from the dugout after the game.
Okay.
So it might have been the Stoke game, but my memory's terrible, so I can forget. But I'll never forget. The person who was taking us around, we had to then go to the press room to get our press passes all sorted, so we were free to do whatever. And so he takes us down, and this is about 10 minutes before kickoff, 15 minutes before kickoff. No, maybe a bit more, maybe half an hour. But he takes us through the guts of the stadium. So we're seeing like bare brick walls, like stuff that if you were going to visit the stadium or whatever, you wouldn't see. So we go through these bare brick walls, we're going through these dodgy ways, and he goes, okay, the press room is just on that side of the door. So he opens the door, me and Gio both walk through, and we turn around, and he goes, cool, I'm not allowed in here, thanks, and then shuts the door. And so we're both like facing, for context, we're both like facing the like door, and behind us is the press room, right? And we're just like this, and he shuts the door, and we turn around to witness the world's press, ex-footballers. We're talking like, what's his name's there? Schmeig, former Leicester City goalkeeper, played for Chelsea as well, can't remember his name. Mark Schwarzer was there. All these ex-footballers, people you've seen on telly, people you've read, just staring at us like, where have these two guys come from? And again, I've got a massive bag with wires poking out, beard like this, and I'm like, okay. So then Gio just starts. Gio again, quick things, just starts walking, right? He makes a beeline towards the person he knows he has to talk to about the press passes. And I sort of clock, so I try to follow him. And all of a sudden, security guards come flying towards us and go, how did you get in here? And then as he's saying that, Gio's already gone. He's saying it to me, and I'm like, I'm with that person. And so I just walk off as fast as I can to try and sort this thing. But there's been so many dumb situations, and we got the press pass sorted, and we had the rest of the day, which was fine. But we've been fortunate enough to have so many dumb situations like that. Like we went around the London Stadium. We did a tour of the London Stadium in the first season, made a video on that. That was just me and Gio again running around the stadium by ourselves. I've been to the training ground before with Gonzo. I went to the premiere of Iron Men, which was the documentary that was made a couple of years ago about the last season. I went to the premiere and interviewed Ray Winston and a bunch of the players.
Nice.
We've been fortunate enough to do a lot of dumb things that are all documented on our channel. And I'm very fortunate in that I'm just sort of along for the ride, given that Hammers Chat isn't exactly my baby, it's their baby, but I just happen to be the person who knows how to record on a camera and edit videos. So yeah, I've been very lucky. And we have, because we've done a lot of dumb stuff.
What do you think your favorite thing is that you've done? The Boleyn thing sounds pretty cool. Is there something else you've done that's been special?
So we also, the other good thing at the bowling we did myself, Gio, and Gonzo went there for the lady, what was then the ladies team, which is now the women's team, had a match at the bowling. And we were there as part of the women's team setup. And if you've seen the highlights from that is on the women's, the former women's YouTube channel, I was the one who edited those.
Tottenham, right?
Yes, against Tottenham, we won 1-0. And again, we had press passes, and because we were part of the setup, and it wasn't a Premier League fixture, there was no real security around. There was no one really. There were sort of minimal people there, security-wise, and so again, I was in the changing rooms before the match. I went up, set up in the press seats. I ran about the stadium, basically free to do what I want. And as a lifelong West Ham fan who, would go to the stadium and go very much through the turnstiles, you sit in your seat, you enjoy it, you go back out the turnstiles and you go.
Yeah.
It was unreal to be able to have that sort of access, to be in the changing rooms completely unaided, to walk around the bowels of the stadium. And also just, getting to interview players. getting to interview Jose Fonte when he very clearly did not want to be interviewed by me. I've done, yeah. I think my favorite though is that the day at the bowling where me and Gio had, where we walked into the press room the wrong way. Nothing can quite match that level of, as someone who's quite shy and anxious.
Yes,
nothing can match that level of anxiety of turning around and seeing ex-Premier League footballers, ex-internationals, journalists, press, everyone just going, "What the? Are we about to die? Are we about to die?" I don't think anything could ever match that moment personally.
Have you seen Final Score?
No, I haven't. No.
That's the no, I haven't.
Is that the Batista film, the one where they blow up the stadium?
Yes, that's Ken, who's in the chat with us today, saw it and said, "Yeah, it's not great, but you know, it's the old ground," and they blow it up. So I don't know. Maybe they thought you were gonna like do an early shoot for Final Score.
Maybe it was around the same.
Yeah, right then and there. You know what I mean? Just like we're blowing this thing up now. Yeah, yeah. So you've gotten to meet a lot of the players. Do you have favorites? Particular favorites?
Probably Mikel Antonio. I've been fortunate enough to meet him twice. It's probably an answer most people won't expect me to give. If you've ever watched Hammers Chat videos, you know
you hate him.
I don't hate him.
You hate him. You hate him. Come on, admit.
I'm just unbelievably critical of the guy. I wouldn't say I hate him.
No, I admit. He's frustrating to watch because sometimes he's running around like a headless chicken. You're like, why is he doing that? Why doesn't he look up occasionally?
He can be sloppy. There's no question about that. Yeah. And he can put shots. He's had some shots that have landed in my backyard here in Boston. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. Board your windows because it's coming. But yeah, I mean, I've been really critical of his performances since his first season with us. I've been consistent with it, at least. I've been consistent with my strong hate. But him as a person is probably the nicest footballer I've ever met. And again, I've been lucky to meet quite a few. I've even met some of the Arsenal players down the line. I've met Thierry Henry. I met Freddie Ljungberg. I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of footballers, and he is just. I've met him twice. I met him once with Gonzo when we went to the training ground. There's an interview Gonzo did with him, and again that day he was injured, so I don't even think he was meant to be at the training ground. He was injured during that time, but came and did the interviews anyway with me and a couple of other West Ham sites. And was super nice, and there's a photo of us together on Twitter somewhere. And then I met him a second time. I think he was doing like a trainer launch or something. Myself and someone called Charlie Donald, who is another friend of Hammers Chat and has done other things. He's got a channel, Roxborough TV. We went to interview him at his trainer launch in central London. And that was just, he was there on his off day with a bunch of his friends. We were given the wrong time, and so we turned up an hour later than we should have. And yet he sat down and had this amazing interview with us and joked around, and he's legitimately someone who you would want to be friends with. He's such a ridiculously nice person. You could tell that. Like in the match of the day interview after the Tottenham game, they asked him, why do you keep scoring these important goals? And you could just instantly goes, oh, I just like to make history. And it's like that level of jokes, and it's just something, again, like to compare it to Jose Fonte, and I'm not calling Jose Fonte out, although I very clearly am. When I interviewed him, he clearly didn't want to be there. He clearly didn't want to do it, and that's fair enough. He probably gets dragged into these things by the club who go, "You have to go and speak to this idiot by himself." And I'm there.
It is part of his job, to be fair.
It is, but I don't do every single thing in my job with a smile either. Do you know what I mean?
That's fair too. I'm not even at work right now.
Right, neither am I. And it's 3:30 in the afternoon for me, and I'm not. But yeah. Sometimes when you speak to people like that, they clearly don't want to be there, but they're polite enough to at least stand there and receive my dumb questions. Whereas Antonio not only had a chat before and after, but also just during the interview is the most like affable, likable person in the world. And anyone who's ever spoken to him, I suspect, would have the exact same opinion. He's an incredibly nice person, despite all of my criticism of his footballing abilities.
His celebration against Leicester was one of the great moments of the season for me. When he went over and stroked the carpet, and then of course, obviously the goal against Tottenham. But yeah, I've always loved him. I've always loved his personality and his. I think he has a real passion for the game. I'm with you. What I don't love is he can be a little sloppy. If he shoots with his feet, you don't know what you're going to get. He's much better with his head, but yeah. But I mean, as a person, as you said, he seems like a really good guy. Other than
here, hang on, Lee. That celebration at Leicester, that stroke in the carpet, is the question I want to ask, because This is something that I've been debating with a few friends. Do you think the stroking of the carpet was, oh, Mr. Gold, Mr. Sullivan, you did a nice job with the carpet? Or do you think it was, come on, Mr. Gold, Mr. Sullivan, are you fucking serious with this carpet?
It was definitely
me. I think he was taking the piss.
I do too.
And that's why I loved it.
I'm sure.
I really think he was taking the piss.
I think he's clearly someone who has his finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Yeah.
As is again with his celebration against Tottenham, when you hear him talk about it, he's like, oh, it's this guy I saw on Instagram or whatever. So he's clearly very aware of what's going on. And I think he probably knew the sentiment of the club being a bit OTT about, carpet. And the fans going, why are we being so over the top about carpet? And so he probably he scored, and in the spur of the moment went, I'm going to go stroke the carpet. And I don't think there's any. You can infer into that what you will.
Yeah,
but I think it's more just
that's a wonderful double entendre to it already, right? So
yeah.
Which is fantastic. But I'm with you. I think he took the piss as well. I feel the same way. I think that was a totally sarcastic move. Because he seems like a guy who's really plugged into social media, like he's doing celebrations based on Instagram dance. Seems like somebody who knows how the fans feel, and I think he did. I think that celebration against Leicester was to play up to the fans and say, like, really, Tottenham are in the Champions League semifinal, but hey, we got a carpet.
Something you said there about how the fans feel, Lee. Somebody that's taken a lot of stick this year on and off is our wonderful captain Mark Noble, and he's taken a lot of stick on and off this year. Yet in that Tottenham match, he gave 150%. There's a lot of talk from people about maybe it's time for him to move on, but I mean the way he went out there, I don't see anybody that could even replace the heart that he brings to this team. How do you feel about that, Charlie?
On the review we did after the game, I gave him my man of the match for a reason. I think that against Tottenham he was magnificent. He ran the game, he controlled the game. Some of the passes he was doing, I called it prime Burlow. There was that one specifically, again, I think Gio said it was Tarnautovic. I couldn't remember. I think it was who it was. But he sort of bent the ball round, like he was sort of off balance, not even facing the right way, and yet he bends it perfectly weighted ball right into the path of the
I know exactly the pass you're talking about. Yeah.
And he has that. I think Noble is one of those people who I think physically you can certainly make arguments that he is not where he used to be. And that clearly Pellegrini subbing him off very frequently probably backs that point up. But I think he has that footballing brain where sometimes he just does something that no one else sees. And you're like, how the hell have you done that? Like there was the one again, I can't remember who it was against earlier on in the season, but the ball came across from the left as a cross, quite low. And he sort of chested it, and it lobbed the defender who's next to him perfectly into the pass of whoever it was to shoot. And it's stuff like that where you go, how are you doing that? You're Mark Noble. That's not a thing you should be able to do. You're not Coutinho, you're not whoever, yet you do that. And I think for me personally, I would be quite happy if tomorrow we came out and we said, look, we're going to give him a contract for as long as he plays and then he can stay and be a coach here. Because even though, again, I think physically you can make a lot of arguments to say that he certainly isn't where he was, and potentially within the next 12 months, he might no longer be able to play. I think you said it in the last show, actually, Tim. You said, Lee, that what was it? You said he won't play 90 minutes of 38 games. And I think that's perfectly true. I think that's 100% on the case. But I'm more than happy for whenever he plays. I think he's going to kill it because he's just got that heart. And again, against Tottenham, I said the three people I wanted in that midfield were him, Declan Rice, and Snodgrass. Because sometimes in those games, not only do you want the heart, you also want someone who's just going to two-foot someone if they need to. And he's that sort of guy.
Those are maybe the three players, maybe the only three players who I feel as though they've put out every ounce of effort all season.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know, when they've played, every ounce of effort all season. Everybody else, I think has had taken games off, had dips in, if you want to call it a dip in form, but I think there's been a lack of effort from almost every other player except Fabianski. But if all the outfield players, I feel Snodgrass, Declan, and Noble, when they're on the pitch, you're getting 100% all the time, every time.
I think it's because they know they're fortunate to be there in a way. I think there's something to be said. And I think you see it a lot from someone like Mikel Antonio as well, who has come up from the lower leagues. Again, they know they're fortunate to be there. There's a lot of, like someone like Arnautovic doesn't feel fortunate to be at West Ham, doesn't feel fortunate. If anything, he feels unlucky to only be at West Ham. He thinks he should be somewhere further.
Yeah.
And you do want that kind of attitude at times, don't get me wrong, but those three in particular will always put 100% in no matter what. And you can criticize, again, parts of people's games, but they always will. And when you're in a game against someone like Tottenham, that's exactly what you need. You might not want it 38 games a year. There's some games where, like Wimbledon, we should have just rolled up and pushed them off the park. We shouldn't have to be like, oh, this is a do or die situation. But that's what you need sometimes. And in a club like West Ham, at a level like West Ham, you want that and need that, and fans want to see that as well.
Well, Mark Noble's proper West Ham too. He came through the academy. He's an East London guy. I mean, we don't have many players left like that. I mean, we don't even have that many English players left, really. But we don't have that many sort of native type players left. So I think that's a real positive. And he's always shown his willingness, as you said, to tangle, to put in a hard tackle. What was the match when he picked somebody up and carried him across the pitch?
Man United.
Wasn't that
Pereira?
That was Man United, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that was just that was one of the highlights for the season for me. When he did that, I was just, I mean, we were all in hysterics. I mean, this is like how much he loves the team that he's willing to do that. Like, get the fuck off the pitch here. Come on, we want to play. Don't piss about.
It was the way as well after he did it.
That's Mark Noble through and through.
It's the way after he did it as well. He turned towards him. He turned towards Herrera, who was on the pitch, who probably had said something to him. He had looked like this annoyed look on his face, and Noble basically turned around to him and went, "Fuck off, no!" And he just sort of walks off as if he was like, "No, you stay there. Do whatever you want to do. We're going to carry on now." It was great. It was a wonderful moment.
That's why I want him. I'm with you, Charlie. I want him at my club. I want him to do, what they've got. I mean, I think he's a very serviceable player going forward for at least another season. I think he'll make his way into the starting 11 a few times. I think he'll be a good cover as well. I don't think he's finished by any stretch. I don't think he's 38 games, 90 minutes each game, but I think he's still. But when he does get to the point where it's time for him to move on from playing, I'd love for him to stay the way Carlton Cole has done, the way Jack Collison has done. Go into our academy system, just be a presence around the club, because I think his spirit is really important. I think he brings an intangible sort of passion to the club that, as you said, not a lot of other players these days bring.
Yeah.
Because
here's the thing, though, it's we don't have a great track record of looking after that type of player.
No, we don't.
Let's be honest here.
We
really don't. I mean, even Carlton Cole, it took a few years for us to bring him back in.
Yes.
Okay. It really did. I mean, Carlton's come back into the academy now, and let's be honest. How many years has he been out? He's been out a while, and he's always hung around. He's always been, on the periphery, willing to do stuff for us, but it's taken a while to bring him in to actually work with younger players. Do you think, Charlie, that Golden Sullivan have the foresight to realize that this is something they need to do? And also, do you think Mark is interested in getting his coaching badges and staying on and doing that? I mean, because a lot of players, it's like they've got the heart to be a player. They don't really fancy stepping up and doing that and being a coach.
I think, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think the only reason someone like Carlton Cole has come back is because they saw dollar signs for it. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think they know Carlton Cole, despite all of his flaws as a footballer, is one of the most beloved people at the club. Everyone loves Carlton Cole just because I do. The last West Ham shirt I bought with someone's name on the back was Carlton Cole. He's a hero of mine. He's a hero. Yep. He's just a top lad, is what I'm saying. But I think the only reason they brought him back is because of that. I think they just know that it was a good marketing move for them. And I think equally they would probably do the same with Mark Noble. In a similar way, actually, to be fair, that they did with Bobby Moore. I think the only reason they brought all that Bobby Moore stuff back was because they knew they could make money off Bobby Moore's name. Like, being real about it, I don't think they particularly care. I think that's just what they do.
Yeah, but look at Bobby, though, the way they treated him, like, when he left the club. I mean, it's like they treated him like dirt. Let's be honest here. They treated him absolutely like dirt. I mean, he left and played for Fulham, and he played against us in an FA Cup final. But I mean, that aside, they treated him absolutely like he was nothing to the club, and he was everything.
And that's one of the things that bothers me about all the Bobby Moore merchandise. I mean, it's nothing to do with him. And I know we're under different ownership, and things have changed immensely since the 1990s, early 1990s when he died. But I feel as though the club treated him so badly, and now they're trying to make all this money off of his name. It doesn't feel right. It feels. I don't know. It
does feel mildly tacky to me. I'm not complaining, because ultimately I want people who are legends of our club and heroes of our club to be respected in that way. And I think that I'm glad that Golden Sullivan were at least round to doing it. I don't think they had the best intentions when they did it, but I'm at least happy. Like, and again, final game at the Boleyn, as cheesy as it was, having that moment of Bobby Moore switching off the lights, or what it was
beautiful.
Bobby Moore. But it was, and it's that thing where you know, sometimes cheesy films can make you cry. You know, just because something is cheesy, it doesn't mean it's bad. And again, although I think they might have ulterior motives for doing it, at least as a West Ham fan, I'm super happy it's finally being done. And I do hope that regardless if Mark wants to do his coaching badges or not, which I don't know, he can do whatever he wants, man. He's Mark Noble. I think the club will probably keep him around in some capacity, because I remember when Steven Gerrard went to play for LA Galaxy, the English press went mad about it. They were like, the last player to play for one club, he's a one club man, you're never going to see it again. And I'm like, okay, well, A, he's literally moving to another club. Let's not act like he's a one club man. But also B, Mark Noble's standing there, he's played for one club, he's gone on loan, but apart from that, he's been a permanent fixture at one club his entire career. That is something that probably won't come around again. As much as I love Declan Rice and I want him to stay for as long as possible, I'm also a realist, and I realise that the second if we don't progress further and he keeps at the rate he's going to go, he will move to a bigger club, and that's okay. I don't begrudge him that. We won't get another player like Mark Noble.
Yeah, I think we'll be fortunate to have Declan Rice again for another season. I really do.
Yeah.
If we keep him over the summer, I'll be happy. If we get another season out of him, and hopefully more than that, obviously. But I mean, I don't think it's guaranteed at all that he'll stay through the summer. If we get a big offer, you know, the owners can't they can't turn that down. I mean, they can, they should, but they won't.
Yeah, especially given how much money we're supposedly got for a transfer budget. You can't tell me that the second someone rolls up with 50 million, they're not going to start at least thinking about it.
Of course they are. Well, and they already had, and I'm convinced this came from the board. They already had Pellegrini come out and say, "Oh, well, if the price is right, he's for sale." You know, I don't think.
And that's smart.
Your
That's
best.
smart.
You think so?
I mean, yeah, I do think so. You know, as much as I hate Tottenham, you have to look at their business model. And you have to say that what they've done the past, the past 7 or 8 years even, has been is very, very well run, and that's part of the reason why I hate them so much. I mean, that they've got really good players. That when they've had these really good players, they've sold them. They've made money. They've brought in some other decent players. Yeah, they've slowly built up and got better and better players. And then when they got Pochettino in charge of it, when they've had really good players in their academy system, they said, you know what, you're good enough to play, we'll bloody play you.
I don't trust get better and better players.
Exactly. Now the thing is, we've got some good players coming through the academy right now as well. I mean, this is a good time, I think. Let's give those young academy players a bit of a run out towards the end of the season. Let's see some of these players. We've got nothing to lose now. Give them some time. Why don't we start playing some of these players? What do you think?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I want to see us play. I think the truth is if we were still in a highly competitive situation for 7th, even then I'd probably consider giving them some run out, because you can't tell me that Dean Garner coming off the bench or Holland coming off the bench or them starting a game wouldn't give you as much as, say, one of our other people. You know what I mean? Like, if you're putting any other player in that situation, they're probably going to give just as much, if not more, as them. And I think towards the end of the season, that's all we're going to want. We're in a very good position, having beat Tottenham, to have a fun rest of the year, to have a fun rest of the season where everyone is buoyant. Like, I can't wait to roll up to the Olympic Stadium against Southampton, because I think everyone's going to be in a great mood and everyone's going to feel excellent because we've just beaten Tottenham. We've just had a great result. We're all feeling buoyant again. Why not try and do some fan favourites? It's something that I think Jurgen Klopp is incredibly good at. And I heard, can't remember which journalist it was, but someone said it. He will make substitutions almost based on what the crowd are thinking, as opposed to what is tactically the right thing to do. And so he will bring someone on, and then all of a sudden, Anfield or wherever they are rises and starts going, yes, here we go, we're going for it. And that's something that we should do more often. As much as I'm a very rational, realist type person who thinks way too much about tactics and XG and all that other nonsense. Sometimes you do need that sort of crowd-pleasing moment. And when you're at the London Stadium waiting for the game to start and they're reading off the names, Dean Garner gets just as big a cheer as anyone else in the team. Sure. And that's because we are proud of that and we want that in our team. So you can't tell me that they wouldn't feel great. Like, we're willing to give people like Dean Garner a chance. He might make a mistake and we go, that's fine. He's young. He's learning. We want him to carry on. We will support that. So why not do that for the rest of the year? I completely 100% agree.
And let's be honest. I mean, it's a no-lose situation, right?
Yeah.
We beat Tottenham. We've been safe for basically the whole season, or at least since the middle of the season. We haven't really been in a relegation battle at all. So that's not an issue. We beat Tottenham. We got the result we wanted. So at this point, so we play the kids against Southampton and we lose 3-0. I mean, is it really that big of a deal? The point is, if you go out and play a normal starting 11 and we lose 3-0, yeah, that's going to be a problem. If we play a bunch of kids and we say, hey, we're blooding them, we're seeing how they do. It's the end of the season. We're safe. We're going to finish 11th or 12th probably anyway. No lose situation. And put them in there.
It's not a Nottingham Forest situation where we're saying, let's just play our under 21s in a first team fixture. That's not what we're saying. We're saying people like Diangana, Holland, maybe even Connor Coventry, people who have been around the first team enough to be on the bench. So clearly they think they're at least close to being ready to play for the first team. Give them that opportunity so they can at least prove it. And let's be real, we'll be going into the preseason and next year feeling a lot more confident about the size of our squad and the people in it with such a ridiculously low budget as well. We want that confidence as a fan base to go, actually, we do at least have these people coming through to maybe supplement it a bit when we don't end up buying someone for 40 million.
Well, we've seen Diangana play, reasonably well. I think he needs to bulk up some, as we're always saying. But he's been a serviceable player. Ben Johnson played really well against Manchester City before I guess he did again. We've seen some of these, and obviously Declan is a star for us now. He's 20 years old or 21? I'm with you. I think we're more confident going into the preseason if we know we have these kids who have come through. And yeah, you're right. I'm not saying put the under 21s or under 23s out there. I'm saying take these players on the periphery, put 2 or 3 of them into the starting 11 or give them a run out toward the end, depending on where we are in the match. And I don't think anybody's going to be upset about that. I don't think anybody's going to be angry about that. It's better than having. My biggest fear is after this big Tottenham result, we're going to go to Southampton and be really flat.
Yeah.
2 games left, very little to play for, quite honestly, and everybody's going to be looking toward the close season and then transfers and so forth. So inject a little excitement and a little energy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually Southampton, at least the first 20-30 minutes, the crowd are going to be super up for it. If Southampton come out and score really early and then sort of roll all over us, the crowd will dampen just because that's the reality of the situation with 60,000 people in the stadium. But at the beginning of that game, everyone is going to be up for it. Everyone is going to be full force going for it and ready for something. And that stadium gets a lot of criticisms, and very rightly so. And I am one of the biggest criticizers of that place going. But when it can get very loud. When it is loud, it can get very loud. We've seen it in cup situations against London clubs like Chelsea. It can get very loud. And I think the beginning of the Southampton game, everyone is going to be there for it. Everyone is going to be hyped for it. And if we came out, if we got an early goal, I honestly don't think Southampton would come back because I think everyone would just be too buoyant. I think it would just be too good a situation to waste.
No, I agree with you. I feel the same way. I'm looking forward to it because I'm looking forward to what I think is going to be a big celebration and almost a sigh of relief that, hey, we have something to hang our hats on this season, as opposed to just being mid-table and sort of staying up. And, now we've actually really, if you really think about it, it's been a sneaky good season in the sense that we beat Arsenal, we beat Tottenham, we beat Manchester United. We should have beaten Manchester United twice, but that's another issue. If we gave us back our points that we got taken away from referees and linesmen, then we'd actually have, I think we'd be looking at a very good season. So it hasn't been everything considered, it hasn't been as miserable as it has seemed at times. But yeah, I think it's going to be a big celebration on Saturday. Let me ask you this: do you have interest in the women's FA Cup final on Saturday? Are you going to? What do you think about that?
It's incredibly frustrating that it's the same day as the final game this season. I'm going to the Southampton game as opposed to the women's one. I'm a huge proponent of the team and their success. As I said, myself and Gio were doing stuff with the ladies team when there was literally 5 people in the stands. We were there doing stuff. Gio would come all the way down from Scotland and we would do stuff. So we're both obviously huge proponents of it. It's just a real shame that it's come at the end of the season. I go to football with a group of people. It's been mentioned on the show before. I think Nick mentioned it, probably Gio. We all meet up in Stratford at 8 a.m., go to have breakfast together and spend the entire day together going to a match. The decision was made that we're going to the Southampton game. I think ultimately neither of them are going to move. The Premier League aren't going to move it because the Premier League don't give a crap. And the FA can't really move it because they've already sold a certain amount of tickets, so they can't move it either. It's a huge shame, but I'm just hugely happy that we've at least, despite the fact I think we started doing it because we were accused of sexism by the former owners of West Ham Ladies.
Yes.
I'm at least super happy that we're putting the resources into it and actually trying to make something of that side of it, because it's, if anything, from their perspective, it's just a smart business decision. And as a proponent of both football and women's football and West Ham, I'm super happy that that's something that the club are doing more and more.
It cannot cost all that much. I mean, I can't imagine it being a huge sort of cost center. And I actually like women's football. You know, as an American, we have a great team. We've had a great women's team now for 20 years. It's been very successful, our national team. I used to actually go to women's football games in Boston years ago when we had a club in Boston, professional club. So I actually I've liked it for a long time, and I'm very, very proud of what we've accomplished on that side. And I'm with you. I think it's a smart business decision. I think it makes the club look good. Tell me what the reaction is to your women's show. So you have the Hamerettes show.
Yeah.
It's the audience. It's a women's audience. Okay. So who came up with that idea, and how has that gone? And do you find people coming to you and saying like, oh, it's, exploitative, or you're being sexist, or do you find this is just the opposite? They appreciate it.
I would say, for me personally, I've sort of thought about it a lot. As someone who I would very openly call myself a feminist, despite the ridicule I will receive from anyone. I don't really care.
Well, that's fine.
I've sort of thought about it a lot. The original idea was, so we were doing Your Shouts, or what we call Your Shouts, where people can send us it's very similar to how you guys have been doing with various supporters club around America, where they can send you their reactions after the game.
We're totally copying you, by the way.
Do it. It's fine. I think there's actually a market for someone to actually. I used to write for the West Ham website for SB Nation, Brace the Hammer. I used to write for them. We did some stuff with small supporters groups. We never really got too far into it though, when I was there at least. And I think there is a market for that thing. I think it's just a smart thing for you guys to do, and you should be doing more of it. Anyway, we were doing Your Shouts, where people would send us in their reactions, and we would upload it on the channel. Gio has wanted to create an all-women show for a while. We've spoken about it for a while, and I think the difficulty was that getting enough women to do a show together in a similar context to this, or in a similar context to Hammer's Chat, was difficult because of the way football conversations are held. Probably in a very similar way to people might look down on an American fan because they are American. There might be a situation where women would feel like they were looked down upon because they were women, as opposed to, and I think by and large, there's actually a lot of what we found since doing it is all the comments have been universally positive, and universally supportive, and people want more of it. And I think it's actually been a very big success, given that it sort of came out of nowhere and we just started doing it. I'm super happy that all of the comments are as positive as they are, and people actually have conversations about what's being said. Because especially in today's modern world, it would be very easy for that conversation to get derailed into other things. And I'm very happy that people are treating it as it should be. People just having an opinion about football and talking about it. It doesn't matter who they are. We call it Hammer at Time, and it is purely for women, but that's purely to give them a platform to talk about it. It's not anything else, if that makes sense.
No, I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, we would love to have more women on the show. We've had some female fans on. We had Harley Worthington on, who does West Ham TV and some other things for the club. Yeah, so we've been really happy with that, and we're continuing to try to diversify our audience as much as we can, as long as obviously we keep it within West Ham. But I think it's a good idea. I think it's progressive. I mean, what do you think there is a growing number of women's football supporters in general, and West Ham supporters in particular? Or do you see that something is like a trend?
I don't know. There's certainly a bigger audience for the women's game as such, in that sense. You just have to look at the semi-final to see how many West Ham fans went to that to support the women's team. Whereas, again, like I said, me and Gio were doing it 3-4 years ago when there was 5 of us. In terms of women's,
I mean, in my day and age, I mean, there was it was a lad's game. I mean, you very rarely saw a bird. I mean, I'm really dating myself here. That's so sexist. You very rarely saw a bird turn up in the terraces, mate. You know what I mean?
Wait,
I mean,
lads,
that's the way I
lads,
used to
lads,
speak
lads.
back in those days. It's like you never would have understood me back in them days. I mean, I've become very Americanized. But I mean, you very rarely saw women in the stands. You really did, and it's like I don't know. I mean, I haven't been to a match back home in donkey's years.
There were a lot more, and I think the clubs moved towards a more family, just making it affordable for families has probably encouraged that slightly more as well, because you get a lot of mothers bringing their children as well. But I do feel like, and I think this is actually true of all sports and spaces that used to be male dominated. I do think you're seeing an increasing presence of women. For example, again, I've mentioned it already once. I'm going to mention it again. I apologize. Professional wrestling has become a lot more popular with women across the country than it was 10 years ago. All of a sudden, like I go to small independent shows in the UK, and it's almost 50-50. Like you get times where it's almost 50-50, and I think it's the same with football. You are seeing more and more women engaging with the sport because it's becoming more open to them. And that's something that, again, I hope something like Hammer at Time can actually do that, can actually show that there is a space, and that people will just treat women like, I don't know. It's a really difficult thing to speak about, but it's something that I'm happy that is actually finally happening, because Jesus Christ, I'm not a lad type guy. And any time where I can speak to someone else, I'm more than happy to do it.
No, you make total sense. And I guess a parallel thing to me, probably a similar comment to me. Sorry, Tim is sending me messages and distracting me.
Hi, Tim.
Well, while he's distracting you, I'll jump in here real quick, and that's something that came out just a couple of days ago, and that's something that's really aggravated me, and that's, I mean, he deserved it because he's a brilliant player, and that's Sterling winning the Young Player of the Year. I mean, the guy's been playing for 7 years in the Premier League. He's been how many bloody World Cups?
Yeah.
What? How do you feel about that? Because I'm pissed. I'm pissed. I think it should have been Declan Rice.
Should have been Declan.
Yeah, I'd back that. I think young players shouldn't be an age thing. It should certainly be a time you were around.
Yes, exactly.
I think, because you can see people, a player like, say, Ian Wright, who started later on in his career, would never have been eligible for Young Player of the Year because he was too old by the time he made it to the top. But he could also have been just as much praised for coming into the top league and destroying it, in a similar way to Jamie Vardy would, in a similar way to Antonio would, in a similar way to all these people who have come up through the ranks. I think, for me, Young Player of the Year should be more like, how long have you been playing for, as opposed to what your age is. And I think Declan has done an incredible job given the amount of first team action he's got. Very similar to how, to be fair, Sterling did when he was playing at Liverpool and only played for 50 first team games of his time.
Sterling also won just playing Player of the Year.
Yeah, I also think that's not a thing that should be allowed. I don't think you should be able to win Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year at the same time.
I feel the same way. I think he's Player of the Year. I think he's an excellent candidate for Player of the Year, and he seems like a genuinely great guy. And I have no problem with him winning it. But Young Player of the Year, to me, as you said, several hundred Premier League appearances by now, 24 years old, international call-ups. He's not young. I want to ask you, I wanted to say two very quick things, and then I have to go to work. But one thing I wanted to mention what Tim was mentioning to me is, when we talked about the women's team, we have tried to have a couple of the women's players on our show, especially the American women who play for West Ham. They want to do it. They have to get permission from the club to do it. We're hoping after the FA Cup final, I think the season's over now, so after the season, if they have FA Cup final, they'll be able to come on with us. That would be great. Also, I wanted to get your take, Charlie, along similar lines. What do you think about us, these Yanks? I hate that word because I grew up in Texas, and if you're a Yankee in Texas, that makes you a traitor. It means you're from up north, which is kind of weird. I live up north now. I'm like a volunteer.
Yeah, what do you think about these septics?
Right. Let's say it that way. What do you? Yeah, it's a good rhyming sound. What do you think about these septics like us who support West Ham and spend all our time on YouTube and on pubs and doing all that? What's your take on us? Are we plastic or are we legitimate enough?
I don't think you can accuse anyone supporting West Ham of being plastic. Let's be real about it. Jesus Christ. If anyone wants to go through the burden of supporting West Ham United, I feel like that's something that should be encouraged at all times. Also, who cares if someone's plastic? Just let them buy the shirts. It goes to flipping help the club anyway. Right. But I feel like it's in a similar vein to when a fan of another team comes and watches as a neutral at the Olympic Stadium. I understand why it frustrates people, but at the same time, they are literally giving us money, so I can deal with that. I think the truth is that I'm not very similar to a lot of West Ham fans as well. I grew up in North London. I had a dad from West London. I am not a lad by any stretch of imagination. I wear unicorn t-shirts. I've got long hair and a beard. I look about as different as a normal West Ham fan as possible. I also don't go to as many games as I want to just because I can't afford it. I don't see why, in a similar sense, it's where I think I am as much of a West Ham fan as someone who goes to more games than me, or someone who is from that section of London. It's the same way as I think you guys are just as much West Ham fans as I would be. I think the way you support the club is the way you support the club. It's a matter of situation. If either of you two had the funds and were living in Stratford or East London or Essex or whatever, you would probably go to as many games as you could, in the same way that I would go to many games as good if I could afford it. I think the idea of splitting people up as being lesser fans just because of where they live or their situation, or in my case, how they look, is ridiculous. And I think it's something that I think will break down more and more as time goes on. But for me, I don't see why people would criticize it at all. It makes no sense to me.
I mean, to be fair, for the vast majority of people we've spoken to who are, who are English, who are from East London or from London in general, who are native West Ham fans, let's say,
yeah,
they've been incredibly supportive of us and they've been fantastic. So I have really no complaints. I just, every now and then when I, on a message board or on social media, I'll run across something along the lines of, well, you can't really be a fan unless you go to the games, or you can't really be a fan. Fine, if that's the way people feel, I really don't care. It doesn't bother me. I'm just always curious as to what the take is. If I ran into somebody, if I were in London and I ran into somebody who was a huge fan of the Boston Bruins, the hockey team, I mean, I'd think that's awesome. That's great. Who cares you don't live in Boston? You're following the team. Let's talk about it. So yeah, I understand.
I feel sorry for them. I really would.
They're not that bad. They're in the playoffs. You're talking about the Bruins?
I'm a Flyers fan.
You what?
I'm a Flyers fan. So
if you're a Flyers fan, then that's your problem. We'll talk about that some other time, because that's a different thing altogether. And yeah, Charlie, if you ever want to talk about wrestling in the 1980s in Texas, which was a pretty big scene.
Oh, let's bun this off. Let's have a quick discussion about Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair. Let's go for it. Let's screw the rest of this off. Let's talk about the Von Erichs. I don't care.
Oh, okay, so you know the Von Erichs. All right, so
never mind the Von Erichs. My brother-in-law used to wrestle in Texas in the mid-'80s.
Oh, really?
The Sarge.
You're joking.
That's my brother-in-law.
Give
him a shout out. There you go.
We're in Charlie Walsh territory now. Let's just bun off the West Ham stuff and let's have deep conversations about 1980s Texas wrestling.
We'll do a whole separate thing about this, because I grew up in a small town outside of Dallas, mostly in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, and I wasn't actually the biggest wrestling fan, but I mean, it didn't really matter because it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Come to my hometown, they would go to high school gyms and they would wrestle. Like do exhibition matches at Von Erichs and Junkyard Dog and Gentleman Chris Adams and all the old Sportatorium crowd from downtown Dallas. So anyway, we'll do that another time. But I have to go to the office because I told my boss I would be there right about now. And it takes 20 minutes to get there. So anyway.
And I have to go to the other office because I've drunk too much of this, mate.
You're having a better Monday than I am. But you know what? After Saturday, this is the best Monday I've had in a very, very, very long time. Yeah. And Charlie, I wanted to thank you for coming on with us. You were absolutely fantastic, just brilliant. You seem like really just the best guy. If you come to Boston, this goes for anybody. If you come to Boston, you can stay here at our house. We have the attic studio where I do the show. We have a finished attic. We have like beds where people sleep, guest rooms. So come to Boston, hang out. Come watch a game with us in Boston, but more. What I would more like to do is actually come see you in London next season and go to a game at the Olympic Stadium next season. But anyway, Charlie from Hammers Chat, Wayne, as always from Dallas. Thank you guys very much. I'm going to sign off our live broadcast. If you guys want to hang on for a second afterwards, that's fine. But thanks for everybody for watching. And I never know the schedule. Tim always knows the schedule for who's coming on next. But we will see you Thursday night, 9:00 Eastern time, with some fantastic supporters group. All right. Talk to you guys later.
Cheers, guys. Come on, you Lions.